So I think Apple may have just discovered their George R.R. Martin, but in a way, I think he's the anti-George R.R. Martin, because this guy who just partnered with Apple TV is like a fiend. He has written so many books and he just keeps writing them, and I think it could be a winning formula for Apple TV. So today I want to talk a little bit about this specific Apple TV deal, and then also the TV industry at large and these god-awful like 2 to 3 year breaks in TV seasons that we've been getting the last few years. But yeah, so if you weren't fully aware or hadn't guessed already, this video is about this fella, Brandon Sanderson, or as I like to call him, Brandon Sanderson. He is an exceptionally regular looking guy, and I don't mean that in a mean way or as an insult. It's actually a compliment. He doesn't look Hollywood. He doesn't look like he's had a million different cosmetic surgeries to make him look good. He just looks like a ordinary dude, a regular ass guy. So that's a plus for me. See, our friend Brandon back here just made a deal with Apple TV to adapt one or maybe a few of his book properties into like TV and movies. And we all know that Apple TV has been absolutely pouring money into their media division. An absolute shitload of money is going into their TVs and movies. And I guess they thought this guy was worth, investing in. And so to understand why, we should look at this number, which absolutely blows my mind. Brandon Sanderson has written over 70 books as of 2023. Shit, that was 3 years ago. He's probably up to like 90 by now. Bro has the Cosmere shared universe, which includes Mistborn and the Stormlight Archive, along with the Wheel of Time. I mean, my God, this guy, he's like a one-man multiverse type of shit going on. Okay, so to get specific, it says he has published 71 works, 32 novels, 17 novellas, 11 short stories, 4 audiobooks, 4 graphic novels, and 3 collections. My God, man! Does this guy have like a family? Bro has a wife and 3 children. I mean, my God, I hope that you get to spend time with them, my friend. Jeez. But yes, our friend Branderson was approached by Apple TV to turn his, I guess, Cosmere universe into a TV universe. This is the Hollywood Reporter, right? So they tried to give him the most Hollywood photo they could. They were really challenged. They were like, this guy looks incredibly, extremely ordinary. So we got to get the special lighting, the special camera, just to give him that Hollywood look for one photo. Basically, this article details Branderson's deal with Apple TV that spans like a bunch of his different properties. And they do highlight here something I find quite interesting. First, Sanderson explained why he went with Apple TV and revealed that the streamer beat out multiple rival offers. Sanderson's deal is rather enviable. He will write, produce, consult, and have cast approvals. This is a greater degree of control than fellow fantasy authors like George R.R. Martin and J.K. Rowling have over their Warner Brothers Discovery shows. So I've watched a couple of Apple TV shows at this point now, and I can vouch that they do seem to give their creative, like directors, writers, people like that, a lot of control and freedom to do what they want with their shows. And so I guess that contributed to why he went with Apple TV over something like Warner Brothers Discovery. You see, our friend Branderson is unlike these other ivory tower authors who don't seem to make a lot of public appearances and talk directly to their fans. He actually made a YouTube video discussing the screenwrites and Apple TV Plus weekly update. So let's hear it from the horse's mouth as to how this deal is going to work.
Hey, Brandon here with your weekly update. This is a big one. You may have read the thumbnail. You may have seen the news. But I am adding a brand new percentage bar to my website, the Mistborn screenplay, which is at bing, 2%.
Okay, maybe he is more like George R.R. Martin than I had thought. Nah, I mean, let's be honest. Knowing his number of books, he's probably going to have that bad boy at 100% in like 2 months. All right, Branderson, sell me.
Let's talk Hollywood. It came out last week that I have signed with Apple to do Mistborn and Stormlight and the Cosmere in general. I've long been looking for a partner, not somebody just to sell things off to. This is how I roll. This is what I've been trying for years. This one feels different. I warned you some things were happening. Back in May, I flew out to Hollywood and did pitches to all the major streamers and studios. I had a lot of great experiences. Like I said, things were different this time around. I hadn't done this in many years because I've been working with friends to try to get things made over at Epic. And this time I was with studio heads. I was meeting really exciting people who are doing really interesting things. And basically everybody tried to bid on Mistborn and Stormlight. So, at the end of the day, I ended up picking Apple. There's a lot of reasons for this.
So far, this definitely sounds like green flags. I mean, he seems to be having his George R.R. Martin moment where it's like there's all this interest in your books, and these Hollywood production companies, they want to do adaptations, they want to put your works to the big screen, and I think he's really taking the right initiative in this moment by like attending these meetings and having a lot of involvement in choosing who the streamer is. I'm sure it can be tempting for an author to just write a bunch of books and then give away the rights and sell them off for a fat paycheck, because then you don't have to leave the house much and you can just sit on your pile of money at home, you know. But I got to applaud this guy for putting in the effort and the initiative to actually go out and be a part of these meetings to make sure that the adaptations of his works are up to his standards. I mean, speaking of George R.R. Martin, the guy in the title of this video, famously, Game of Thrones was not exactly, I think, what any of us wanted it to be, particularly not George R.R. Martin. And he has recently done this like Hollywood Reporter article looking, again, the Hollywood Reporter loves to do like Hollywoodify regular looking dudes. Should get the Hollywood Reporter crew up in here and photograph my ass. Heavy is the Crown, George R.R. Martin on his triumphs and torments. So this Hollywood Reporter article essentially lays out George's journey with producing the latest HBO TV show, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which I have been watching and I have been enjoying quite a lot, frankly, more than Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, at least their latest seasons. And in particular, this article lays out like a beef that George has with Ryan Condal, I think his name is. That's the guy basically who created the House of the Dragon TV show based on the Fire and Blood books. But yeah, it was reported here and by Martin himself via a blog post that him and Ryan were just not on very good terms. There was apparently a meeting, an executive meeting. Sources say Martin and Condal's relationship deteriorated further and came to a head during a Zoom call with the show's producers and some HBO executives. The purpose of this call was for Condal to present his vision for season 3. After Condal spoke, Martin detailed his many objections and allegedly declared, "This is not my story anymore." Wow. So I bring this up to say that, of course, a lot of people love the Song of Ice and Fire book series, and the Game of Thrones TV franchise has been incredibly popular and beloved. I enjoyed probably the first 5 to 6 seasons of Game of Thrones. I really liked them, and then they kind of ruined the ending. House of Dragon, I was curious about in season 1, wasn't a huge fan of season 2. This new Night of the Seven Kingdoms show, I'm really enjoying that so far. And so I think George is kind of an interesting case study of what happens when you sort of sell off your rights. And I know he's been somewhat involved in the creative production of the HBO shows, but I think our friend Branderson here is looking at George as a cautionary tale. He doesn't want to repeat the same mistakes by giving his creative works off to some Hollywood guy who's just going to turn it into their own thing.
I really like the vibe, but I like the vibe with a lot of these meetings. There weren't any bad meetings in the group. Part of it was the amount of control that Apple was willing to offer me. But it's less about control and it's more about the partnership. And the partnership felt right with Apple. I really like how they've been doing Apple TV Plus, and they're very careful rollout of specific films. Our goal right now is to do Mistborn still as a feature and Stormlight as a premium cable streaming show.
So he's kind of doing like a film adaptation and a TV adaptation, which I think is interesting because they're both different like challenges when it comes to getting it right. Yeah, look, what he's saying makes a lot of sense. I've seen Apple invest a shitload of money into their TV and movie division and like putting a lot of effort and creative control into the hands of the creators. And I think, you know, the funny part about Apple being a tech company is that when they're entering into this like TV production business, the executive team at Apple is a bunch of tech nerds with spectacles and all this knowledge about nerdy shit, basically. No offense, but it's nerdy shit, right? And they're not creative veterans. They don't know their shit when it comes to TV shows, movies, how to make good shit. And I think in a counterintuitive way, that's actually been helpful to a lot of the Apple TV creators because you don't have the executives at Apple saying like, oh, we know how to do it better, right? Because they don't. They're just nerdy like math guys. I think the reason you've had a lot more creative control put into the hands of their directors and writers is because frankly, these tech executives don't know how to do it better. And so they look to their creative partners and they say, yep, you guys take control of the creative stuff. will handle the tech, streaming side of things. Interesting. So let's see.
I get to write the screenplay for Mistborn, and I will be showrunner on the Stormlight show.
Okay, so that is quite interesting, and that I will give him props, because that's a big get. That's like a big commitment for them to make and for you to get out of them, right? Because very easily I could see properties like these get just totally George R.R. Martinified, right? Where some asshole like Ryan Condal comes along and decides they want to make it completely their own, and then any kind of a vision that related to what was going on in the novel or in the original version of that story starts to morph or fade away.
I will be co-show running with someone, so we're going to be hunting down that person. But I'm going to be deeply involved. And I've been warning you guys for a while now. This will impact my writing schedule. Not to the point that I think you need to worry. Mistborn Ghostbloods is going to be on time in 2028, and the trilogy should be one a year thereafter, and it won't impact Stormlight, other than the fact that I've kind of already built this time in. Part of the reason why I knew I was going to need some more time here is I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff with Hollywood. I'm going to be making sure these things come out right.
So I guess here he is warning his fans against any George R.R. Martin fears. Famously, George R.R. Martin has not written the last 2 books of the Song and Ice and Fire series. He is just taking his time, or he's procrastinating, or he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. No one knows. And I think it's left a lot of fans pretty bitter and sad about the actual Song of Ice and Fire book series, because the TV show had an ending, and maybe does it spoil the ending of the books? Nobody really knows. Is he going to do a different ending? We won't know until it ever comes out, if it ever comes out. Our friend Branderson here is doing a smart move by trying to reassure fans that that is not the kind of outcome that we can expect.
And that begins with me writing a fantastic screenplay for Mistborn to share with Apple and everybody in the coming months. So you can follow along. This is going to be my full-time work for the next few months. I am scheduled to turn that in summer. So we'll see how long it takes me to do a screenplay. I've done several before, but nothing on this level. So that's where we are. And I'm excited. Hopefully, we will be able to do more announcements as we eventually get people attached. That will be very exciting, but there's nobody attached right now.
Okay, so he's saying no casting, maybe no writing team, it seems like. And that's fine. Look, I think when it comes to adapting these kinds of properties, getting the right team in the first place is incredibly important. And I think a really successful Apple TV book series adaptation has been Slow Horses. This is a show by Mick Herron, is the author of the books. And the showrunner of this show is Will Smith. No, not the American Will Smith. This is the British Will Smith who made Slow Horses. Fun fact, when I was watching this show for the first 2 seasons, I straight up just thought it was the American Will Smith who was writing this show. And I was like, how does the American Will Smith know so much about the UK? But anyway, Slow Horses has been on the air for the last 4 to 5 years, and they've put out 5 seasons. They release 1 season every year, which I think, oh, thank God. This Mick Herron guy sounds similar to our friend Brandon Sanderson. I mean, we got another normal ass looking guy. Again, not an insult. I like when people look regular and not Hollywood beautified. But yeah, this guy won both the Gold Dagger and the Diamond Dagger from the Crime Writers Association, so he's got to have something going. And yeah, he's written quite a few books. The Zoe Boehm series, which is the basis of Down Cemetery Road, which was also adapted by Apple TV, and then the Slough House book series, which is what Slow Horses is based on, and that is already up to 9 by now? My God. And so what I like with this approach for a streamer like Apple and TV shows that are adapting books is that, okay, you've got the source material, you've got this whole infrastructure to make a TV show, just make the damn thing yearly. I really don't mean to sound entitled and we should get everything for nothing, but TV was always a yearly event. It was always something that would come out once a year, and it would be worked on every year, and they would put shit out every year. I think that change started a little bit before COVID, but I think COVID really cemented this 2 to 3 year wait time in TV, and I hate it. I think it sucks. I think it really takes the steam out of a TV show. I love that Slow Horses has been airing yearly for the last few years. I think that's so much fun. People don't just forget about these shows. They stay engaged. They find them engaging and interesting and fun. And look, unfortunately, as much as I'm glazing up Apple right now for producing a show like Slow Horses, they are not immune from this problem themselves. Severance is a very popular Apple sci-fi show, and that had like a nearly 3-year gap between season 1 and 2. What the hell are we doing, guys? Now, I know they had a writer's strike and that affected their production, but guys, I mean, 3 years is just, that's just not acceptable. Come on. Ben Stiller is like a Hollywood guy. Ben, you should know how Hollywood works. Make your damn TV show every year. Come on. And I have been massively enjoying Pluribus. I do love that show from Vince Gilligan, but we're likely not going to see more Pluribus until late 2027 or early 2028. That sucks, man. Why? I'm pretty sure Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul both aired yearly, except maybe like the final season of Better Call Saul. And so that's like 10 or 11 seasons of TV that came out pretty much once a year, and you can't recreate this with Pluribus. I'm saying that because Vince Gilligan is the guy who made both shows, and I know that Apple is producing this one, but like, Apple, come on. This is the big scourge, in my opinion, is TV shows just taking way too damn long to make seasons. So, back to Branderson. Let's see if he has an answer to our frustrating issue of commonly having to wait a long time between TV seasons.
Right now, I am just really happy. I just got back yesterday from Hollywood, had a bunch of meetings with Apple, and they all went really well. Like, this feels really different this time. I think this one is really going to happen. That's no promise, it's no guarantee. If you go back to my State of the Sanderson, you'll see that I had like 10 steps outlined, and this only puts us out of the 10 on like step 2 or 3. So we're still not very far along. These aren't coming next year, but I'm confident this time that it's going to go really well. So follow along. Join me as I write the screenplay.
Okay, I think hoping it goes well could mean a few different things. Obviously, I would hope that an adaptation of something like this can be good. That's first and foremost what you want. And yes, I'm complaining about long breaks between TV shows, but of course I would rather have a show actually stay good and give us really, really solid content than forcing a show to release yearly episodes that kind of suck, okay? Yes, there's clearly nuance, there's a quality discussion. You don't want to just push out numbers. I guess what maybe gives me a little bit of hope with a guy like this is that he's written so many books, he's used to that really high output, and he seems to be pretty accountable to his fans. You know, he has that like percentage ticker that they can follow along. So yeah, hopefully that kind of incentive can allow for these shows and these adaptations to be regular. Also, I want to address, why do I say this guy could be, you know, the next George R.R. Martin or the anti-George R.R. Martin? Is because these stories that are being adapted are heavy in the fantasy genre, and yes, if you want to be a hater, you can call it fantasy slop if you want. I mean, look, I don't know if I could tell you in all confidence that all 70 of his books are fucking good. I couldn't say that for sure. But you know what? I think that kind of numbers at least shows consistency and shows that he is able to deliver. And hopefully if these projects get like a big enough budget from Apple, then they can actually deliver on like a high quality and consistent quantity. That would be good. And honestly, like, I don't even really know much of the work that this guy has done. I only kind of know him because my girlfriend started reading one of his book series. And of course, I follow the news and I saw that he made this deal with Apple TV Plus. So I don't know. I just feel like the TV landscape has been pretty bleak, and I just am hoping that a guy like this and, you know, other trends in the industry such as Slow Horses and all that kind of stuff can really push TV in a better direction. But let's give Branderson the closing word here.
How difficult it is to take a 200,000 word book and condense it to a 2-hour movie. Yeah, that'll be enjoyable. That's going to be our next 6 months or so. I should be able to get some other work in at the same time. Songrise 3.0 is at bing 35%. So that's going to be some fun bings for the next few months, isn't it? As we work on the screenplay. So
I certainly have never seen George R.R. Martin be so upfront with the progress of his works. Bro's been stuck at like 60% for 10 years or something. So at least this guy seems to have a system in place to like consistently produce content.
stay tuned. Also, really exciting, we're now about a month away from the launch of our next crowdfund, the Hoyd Storybook campaign. So starting this week, we're going to really start ramping up for that on BackerKit. So keep an eye out on my socials. We'll be doing some fun content and things like that as we lead up to the big day.
Okay, so I find this thing quite interesting, not this specific crowdfunding thing, but from what I can tell, this guy Branderson has crowdfunded many of his projects and many of his books, and I actually think that that's quite an interesting approach. I don't know a huge amount about the world of like literature publishing, but I don't expect that they give you a huge amount of money like without a proof of success. You know, crowdfunding can sometimes be a little bit shady if you're not super upfront with it, and if the people who donate don't feel like they've been delivered, you know, what they were promised. But from what I can tell, the way he's approaching these crowdfunding campaigns for his books and stuff, it seems to be very open, and he seems to be very accountable to the backers and to the people who donate to these campaigns. And I think that's kind of a cool approach. I mean, I think it's a good way to cut out a lot of these really big industry players, whether it's like a publisher or a studio or these different entities that are so easily able to just like snatch control of a creative property because they have the money, right? They can just dole out the money, snatch up a whole bunch of different creative ideas that they either can choose to act on and make things, or they just want to sit on the IP until one day it gets popular enough for them to make. And if it doesn't, then who cares? They'll just never use it. And so I think taking this approach from our friend Branderson of like actually maintaining control, creative control over his creative works, I think is really cool. And I'm actually quite excited just to see how that plays out. As like an industry, I don't know, canary in the coal mine, like are we going to see a lot more authors take this approach where they insist on having creative control in their film and TV adaptations? I don't know. I would like to see more of that. Generally, I think artists maintaining creative control and ownership of their creative products is better for the ultimate like output, but we shall see. The only bad thing about this guy having such creative control is that if it does all come out and turn out to be kind of shit, everyone, all of his fans are only going to have one person to blame, and that's going to be him. So it's a big risk from that side of things, and I definitely applaud him for taking on that risk, and I wish him luck with not fucking it up, basically. But yeah, I'm really curious to see how this plays out. I am also curious to see what happens to the actual George R.R. Martin. Like, will he ever finish those damn books? Will House of the Dragon finish in a satisfying way? Will he have more TV and film adaptations? And will he get more creative control? Will he kind of take a leaf out of Branderson's playbook? Who knows? Honestly, this is all just stuff I find really interesting, and I wanted to get up here and talk about it today. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. I hope you enjoyed my rambling chatter about this topic, and if you have anything to add or comment or correct me on, then go ahead and let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to come back and hear me yap or talk or converse about another topic at another time, then go ahead, like and subscribe. You can come back here for more, hopefully very soon. And until then, I'll see you around. Cheers. Bye.